Hi all. In this course, you are going to learn everything you need to know to clear Microsoft exam, which is Introduction to Programming using Python, and the exam code is MTA 98381. MTA exam covers pretty much all the basics of Python, and if we need to see how those are divided, I have put this chart together. The box size represent the percentage as per Microsoft. So here we start and we need to reach till the end. So we start with the data types and operators. After that we'll cover control flow using decision and loops, and then there will be some kind of exercise we will do around input and output operations. Then we'll cover document and structure. At the end there are details on troubleshooting and error handling, and we will conclude it with various type of modules available to be used for Python. So that's where we'll finish this course and we'll be able to clear the exam. So getting started, as this is a programming course, you will need some kind of code editor or compiler to edit your code as well as to run it. So there are a couple of options available. One of them is Visual Studio Code. It's a free tool available to run any programming language. Or Python, ideally there is another option is PyCharm, and there are some online editors also available there. I have mentioned two here, and if you use those, you don't need to install anything. You can just compile it online. There might be some, maybe 5-10% of the examples which you won't be able to do it through these editors, but most of the exercises or example you should be able to run it online. So I'm going to use mostly Python idle. Let us quickly see how to download Python and start using it. I'll show you an example from python.org. You just go there, go to download, select your operating system, and let's take this version. So you can click on this application and that's it. You'll see Python idle is already up and running. So for example, if you want to write your first program, let's say print hello world. That's it. So this outcome is coming through Python, and this is your language command, and this is getting printed. So this is your first program. You are letting Python compiler print by this print function, and the result is being displayed. Let's get started with first skill, which is perform operations using data type and operators. So here we will cover Python basics, which is mostly around data types, the different type of data types, string, numbers, Boolean, collections, and operators precedence. Data type introduction. Variable. In Python and any other language, variables are used to give a name to a memory location so that it can be used in the program. For example, if I want to say a equal to 1. So what I am telling here is I am defining a variable with the name a that stores the value 1. So if I just say a, Python will go to that memory location and print that value. So same way I can have a string variable where I'm defining the name of variable as name and I'm putting as name of the Scott. So if I just say name, so it is getting the value from that variable. Unlike other languages, we don't define like what type of variable here specifically, but we just define the variable and we give a value, and Python automatically, looking at the value, select the type of the variable. So here we have seen how we can print a variable value. Other way of using it, it's using a print function. We can pass the variable name and it will give you the value. So this is how Python use variable. Names of the variables are case sensitive. So for example, we defined name as Scott. If I say Python to print and capital name, it will not find that. So name is not defined. It must start with a letter or underscore. So this is another value, like I cannot start a variable 1a equal to hello. That's a syntax error. So it must start with a letter or underscore. And once you start the letter or underscore, the subsequent character must be underscore, letter or digit. there is no space allowed. For example, A equal to B equal to, for example, hello, for example, NA space M. So it is giving an invalid syntax. No keywords allowed like if, else, and so I can't say if equal to Scott. So because if the reserved keyword, it is gonna give you a syntax error. The assignment combined with operation. So what we saw it here when we are saying A equal to 1, simply equal to 1, it's called assignment operator because we are assigning the value to the variable. Now there is a assignment operators can be combined with operations. For example, if I say A plus equal 1 and then if we print value of A, it will become 2. So what A plus equal 1 means? So that means it is equal to A plus 1. So this is telling Python that while assigning, you do this operation as well. So we are assigning the value to A plus we are adding to 1. So if I again say A equal to A plus 1 and print A, it will become 3. So same way we can say A minus equal 1 as well. So this will be reducing a value. So if you print A, after that it becomes 1. And there are equally you can use multiply and divide operators. So this is known as assignment combined with operators. Then there is concept of global variable versus local variable. We'll get more into that detail that it defines the scope, right? It is generally if you define a variable, the scope is within that code segment. But if you want to define a variable at a global level, you use global keyword. And we will see more examples around that. So you define like this or you use it like this just to tell it's a global variable. Here we can do a very simple exercise. Let's define two variables, A equal to 1, B equal to 2, and let's say C equal to A plus B, and then print C. So this next exercise we can do. Here we are defining two variables, A and B, and then we are assigning the sum of A and B with the very simple operator to C, and we are printing the value of C. Next is data type string. So string data type is defined as simply by assigning the value of a string. For example, I say fruit equal to apple. So here I am defining a variable fruit and I am assigning the value as apple. So if I say print, I will get that value returned. So here we have defined a string. So there are different ways of writing string. We can use single quote, double quote, triple quote, or raw string. Let's see a couple of examples when we use different values, right? So for example, I can define a sentence equal to apple by using a single string, and if I print send, I will get apple. Or I can same way I can say sentence is equal to apple double string. Same way it will give us the same value as apple. So why do we use single string versus double string? One example is if I have to use, let's say, double quote within the value. So then in that case I can't start and end with apple. Let's say I want to say this is great apple. So in this case I want the quote within the sentence, so I can't use that double quotation to define the string. It will give an error. So one way to do this is I can use single quote and say this is great apple. I should have ended with this is great apple. So you are getting that value single quote within that. Or there is another way also. Even if you prefer to use double quote, then you can use a escape sequence. So what do? You say using the double quote, you say this is, and you should say backslash and say great backslash this apple. So this way you are telling the compiler that when I am putting this backslash, the next character after that should be considered as is. So that is another way of doing it. So you have a choice which one you want to use, single quote or double quote. And you can use single quote within double quote or double quote within single quote, as we have seen in this example. Also, if you want to use double quote within double quote, you can use escape character The same you can use when you want to use single quote within single quote. For example, that's great apple. So if you want to use this thing, you can put an escape sequence here. So if you print send, I hope this is clear. And the other way of defining a string is a literal, which is also called triple quotation. So for example, I want to say this is great. I like this style. In this case, you will see it will take the value as is. For in other words, it could be a multi-line. So this way you can define multi-line string. So with this literal, as you see, we can preserve multi-line as is by Python will insert backslash n by its own. And there are some other use of triple quotation also there, which is used for function documentation, which we will cover later. The fourth type is called raw string. Here the system will preserve the sentence and the character as is. So how do you define it? You define R and then you say string, backslash and quotation, this, whatever you say. And if you print send, it takes everything as is. It does not differentiate with anything. You put it under the quotes, it will take everything. So this is also used for like regular expression and all, where you have a lot of special characters to be introduced and to you, and you don't want to ignore anything. So that is the way we use. So this is how we write string in different styles. And then we talked about escaped characters. Escape characters are like special characters which let you escape. For example, in this case we have seen this is letting you escape this single quote from the compiler to treat it differently. So like this backslash is an escape character. Other escape character is backslash n, which we have seen in our example where we saw Python was automatically introducing this backslash n to tell that it's the next line. We'll see more example for this down the line. And next we want to cover is strings are immutable. What does that mean is that strings cannot be altered. So let's say A is defined as apple. Here apple is a string. In Python, string is considered as a list. So for example, if I say A equal to 0, print A equal to 0, it will print A. If I say A is 1, it will print B, because the index starts with 0. But if I try to change the value of A equal to 0 to, let's say, I want to change it to B, what happens? It says it does not support item assignment because strings are immutable. So you cannot change, once defined, you cannot change the value of the string. For example, when you say A equal to orange, this is different, right? This is different than changing the value within the same space, versus what is happening here is it is rewriting the entire value. It is getting a different memory unit where it is now pointing A to new memory unit. It is not using the same memory and changing the value, but here it is using the different memory unit and reassigning orange as a value to A. So that is another thing we need to remember, that strings are immutable. There are other lists type also there. Other collection types are also there which are immutable. So string is one of those. Let's talk about string concatenation. So let's say we have two parameters. One, first name is equal to Scott and last name equal to Thomas. So if I want to concatenate, let's say I want to concatenate to full name is equal to, I can just simply say f name plus l name. And if you print full name, you will get, we can use space if we want to make it look better. I can say f name plus space plus l name. So here I am concatenating three strings, f name and space itself as a string and last name. And if I ask to print full name, now you'll see Scott Thomas. So that is how one way of concatenating a string. And also you can do kind of a multiplication operation on string, let's say I want to say fname times 10. So it is going to repeat the same string 10 times. So that is how multiplication in string works. Print function we have already seen. So we can say fname and it prints the value of the string. So that is string print function. Other way of concatenation is the formatting. Formatting can be used for many things, but we can use concatenation also for that. For example, if normally I want to write, say today is Sunday, so it will print. If I want to pass a value and concatenate it, so using formatting, I can use today is curly bracket, and here I can say format and I pass the value here. So if you see here, I said today is curly bracket, and here I pass the value using the format function. So in fact it concatenated and enter that value. So other way of doing that is I can say day equal to Monday. So here I'm defining a variable as day and assigning the value as Monday, and now I want to use the concatenation function and say today is curly bracket, and I can say format. Instead of writing here the exact value, I can pass the parameter as day and it does the same thing. So if we want to use it as a normal plus operation, I could have entered as today is space plus day. This is also same as using the plus operator, but here I am using it as a format. So format gives us a lot more options. So I'll just give you one more example. Let's say back to format. So today is this. I like this day. I like this. Here it becomes easy. So, and I say format and I pass the value as day, which has Monday. So let's see how it looks like. Yeah, the reason for this error is that we are asking two values, but we are giving only one parameter. So what we should do is instead we should say today is, define this, I like dot format. So here you see I am passing that value as two places. So this will become, if you do the same thing using a plus operator, it will become difficult. You need to add a lot of, and now as you have seen that it could have multiple value and we have put 0 here. That means we can pass multiple parameters also into this, and we'll just keep on changing this. So I want to say today is Monday and it is winter. So but I want to use that format. So here I'm going to pass two parameters. I'm going to say today is Monday and here it is winter. So what is happening here in the format function, it is taking the first value, which is at 0th index, and it is replacing wherever we have put 0, and the second value, which is the first index, and it is replacing it here. So this is how we can do concatenation using format. The other property of formats are, right, how to actually use the format string to format it. We'll see some examples around that down the line, but from here it is more about but here I just wanted to show more about concatenation. So next is string comparison function. In string also you can have a comparison, which is mostly used in numbers, but string also you can compare. So what happens is, let's say you say a equal to hello, b equal to world. So if I want to see a is less than b, so the answer is true. What happens in this case, it compares the first character in this string by this first character and so on. So that is how the comparison works. So let's say I want to say b is less than a, the answer will be false because it will compare that w comes after h, so it will give you a false result. Now there is another topic in comparison I want to cover which is versus equal to. So if I say a equal to hello and b equal to hello, so if I say a equal b double equal, because it's a comparison, the answer is true, because because the values between A and B are same. So it is going to give us a true answer. So double equal to comparison compares the values of two variables. But if I say A is B, here the answer is coming true, but this also depends whether the system is using the same storage, same memory storage for this. In this case, it is not comparing the value, but it is actually comparing that when system is using these two value to store, are they same. So for example, in this case, if A's value is hello and it is given the same memory location and B is also given the same memory location. So in this case, if we say A is B, the answer would be yes. And A equal to B will also be yes, because of course they have the same value, which is hello. And since they are pointing to the same memory location, so in that case, A is B will also be true. However, if we see this example, in this case, A equal to B will be true because both of them have the same value. But since they are pointing to different memory locations, so if you say A is B, it will be false. So how do we see whether A is B will be true or false? That is tricky because it is not reliable. Sometimes system will give the same memory location, sometimes it will give different. So it is best to use double equal to for value comparison instead of is. Let's see an example of formatting string, and let's try to print a shopping list in this format. So to start with, the top we can simply write shopping list, and in the next line here we need to pass two parameters, right, and we need to space it accordingly. So here we will use formatting. So we can say print, and here I'm gonna use, if I use this and pipe and one and say here format, and I pass two values, one is item and second is cost, right? So same way I can use, here I can put coffee, cake, and here I put 2.0 and 5.0, right? So here I'm just using simple format and I'm just passing two parameters to format, and let's see how it looks like. The print p should be small. So if you see, this is how it looks like. It has printed everything, but there is no spacing, formatting and all. So there we want to use now more properties of this format thing. So here we can define that what is the space needed for each unit. So to get it better formatted, we will define how much characters should be given for each unit. For example, I want to give 8 characters for this, 8 characters for this here, and same way, let's say for this I want to give maybe 8 again to make it look better. So I'm using other parameter of formatting where I'm defining that give 8 character each, and we'll print it. Let's see how it looks like. So if you see it here, this is getting better. It has given the required number of character which we had defined here, which is 8 to each item, and it has kept the space, and then it has used the same for the right hand side. Now if you see, these items on the left are aligned to left, but these are also aligned to left side, which on the right hand side the cost, but we here in the example we wanted to have that align right. So what we can use, then we can use a alignment property in formatting. So on the right hand side I want to align right, so this is a symbol for right alignment. So after we run it, you see that the cost is aligned right. Maybe we should, if you, let's say we want to put shopping list also in the center and want to give it, let's say 8 plus 8, 16 plus 1, 17 characters. So here I can do this itself. Instead of passing this value, I can say dot format shopping list. I'm going to pass it here, and I'm going to say 0. I want to use 17 spaces. Let's see how it looks. And by default it is left aligned, so I need to put it in the center line. To do it center line, I use this format. So here you go. So we have our shopping list printed in the center. We have items on the left is left aligned, items on the right is right aligned. So just for the completion, the left align, you use this symbol for left alignment. It's not going to change because by default it is left aligned, but just to complete the example and all three different kind of alignment, I'll print it. So if you see here we are defining in the print function that in the 0th position, which is the value, pass this value and reserve 17 characters for this and make it center line. And here in this we are saying this each of this 0th value will be 8 character left align, which is item copy k, and here we are saying the second value, which is at the first position, in first index position, we are making it as right line. So this is how formatting helps us to pass the value, concatenate the string as well as align as needed. So strings have various predefined methods, and these are some of the examples. Let's try these. So upper, let's say we have a string which is apple, and if I say a dot upper, it gives you everything in uppercase. Same way, if you say a dot lower, it gives you everything in lowercase. Then there is a function of called strip. Let's say a has some spaces in the start. So if you simply print a, it will give you those spaces. But if you say a dot strip, it will remove the spaces. And you can even say, if you want to remove just on left hand side, you can say left strip. So it removes the space on the left hand side and keeping on the right hand side. If you want to, same way, if you want to use right strip, you can say a dot right strip. It removes on the right. And by default, if you say a dot strip, it will remove from both sides. We can even define what we want to strip. Let's say in this case, I want to have a as there are some values. So here I want to strip it, but I want to strip all the unwanted a's. So here I can pass that value also, that what I want to strip. I can want to strip by a. So it has removed the a's and the start and the end. So that is also another way of stripping it. And I can even say a strip. Even I can pass multiple parameters, multiple characters strip. If I say a and space, so what will it give? It will remove all the a's and the spaces in the start and end. So that is what strip. There are other functions like whether to check whether string is a digit, we use is digit function. For example, if I have a value of a equal to 1, if I say a dot is digit, it gives me true. If I a equal to apple and then I say a dot is digit, it gives me false. So we can use this to see what type of value is there in the string, whether it's a digit or not. Then we have a string dot find. Like for example, we have a string called this is a great day, right? And if I want to find day in this, so I can simply say a dot find day. So it is giving me the position where this string which I have passed occurs first. So it gives me the first occurrence. So it gives the position of this one, which is 16th. Let's say I want to use the same string, I say a dot find is. So now, even though there are like two places where we have is, it is giving me the start of the first occurrence. So this is 0th index, first index, second index. So that's why it is giving me second. Now, there is another function which we want to cover is called split. So taking the same example, now we have this is a great day. It's a combination of 5 words. What if I want to split it into different words? So I will say, let's say I want to split it and put it in a different variable. So I will say b equal to a dot split, and here I will tell like based on what we want to split it. So I'm gonna pass a space. So if I print b is giving me a list of 5 words which was split from this line and based upon the spaces. So wherever space is there, it has split it and put it into this one. So this is split function. One use for split function could be, let's say we want to count how many words are there in a string. So that way we can split it. And if you have a big document, you want to split into multiple lines, you can split that. So for now, these are some of the by default available methods in string which can be used. You can go ahead, try different examples and see how it works. In Python, there are two data types used for defining all the numbers, which is integer versus float. Integers are used for all the integers and floats are used for all the decimal point and non-integers. So let's see an example. A equal 1 and B equal 2.1. So here if I print A gives me value of 1. By looking at the value, it is defined as integer. So and B is 2.1, which is defined as float. Now here it says that what is the range of integer. Unlike some other languages, like they have different kind of integer based on the size, like for example int, small int, long int and all. But in Python it is kept very simple. They are just using a type integer and there is no limit on how much ever long value you can store in that. For example, if I just type any large value, A will have it, and if I say equal to A plus 1 and I print A, so it took care of that value. So in Python there is no limit whatever could be the length of the integer. The limit is only on the machine which you are using, that how much it can handle. But otherwise Python does not define any limit on the length. So that's why it is called infinite integers in Python. So these are the operators which are used on the numbers in Python. So starting with add, subtract, multiply, divide, exponent, module, and we have then floor division. So let's see some of these. For example, A is equal to 1 to 2. If I just want to use add, so let's say C equal to A plus B, and if I print C, we get the total. And if I say C equal to B minus A and print C, it will print 1 because 2 minus 1 is 1. So same we can use multiply, or I can simply write A times B and it will give me the result. Division work the same way. Simply A by B, 5. Exponent, it gives, as you know, exponent is the power, right? So let's say if you want to see 2 times power of 10, so then you write it like that in Python. So it will give you 100. It's like 10 times 10, right? Module function, it gives you the reminder. If I, for example, if I divide 10 by 3, right? 3 times 3 is 9 and it should give me 1 as the reminder. So if you use that, you can use module. One good example where we can use this, let's say we want to check if something is even versus even or odd. So for any even number, let's say any even number, if you take module by 2, it should give you 0. So that is an example of checking whether something is divisible by 2 or whether it's even or odd. Then there is a special kind of division called floor division. So floor division just give you the integer for the division and it does not give the remaining float. Just to see an example, if I say 10 divided by 3 with normal division, it will give me 3.333. But if I say 10 floor division 3, it will ignore anything after the dot. It will give the real integer that comes after division. In this case, it will be 3. Another example would be 20 divided by, let's say, 8. It gives me 2.5 in normal division. But if I say 20 floor division 8, it will give me 2. Sometime the question could be asked like, what is 4 and 5? So in this case, since it will be 0 point something in normal division, but in floor division, it will give you 0. And okay, so when you divide something, even if you are dividing, let's say 2 divided by 1, even though 2 and 1 are integer, the answer is always float. This is the point to remember. And same for if you add integer, let's say A equal to 5, B equal to 10.0. So we have an integer and this, let's say C equal to A plus B. So if I print C, C will become a float. So integer plus float will return float. So these are basic operators using numbers. These operators are executed in particular order. So this is called operator precedence. This table defines how an operator has the precedence over the other operators. So for example, in this table, the parenthesis will be executed first, then exponent, then unary plus, and so on. And within this, it is top to down and left to right, the order of operation. So for example, if we want to see this case, here we are saying 10 times 6 divided by 3 plus 9, floor division 3 times 2. So in this case, if you compare it with the tables on the left, the parenthesis will be solved first. So first it will try to solve what is there in this parenthesis, which is 3 times 2. So once it executed, it will make it 6. Now in this case, next will be multiplication. So then it will multiply 10 by 6, it becomes 60. And then followed by that, the next will be division. So 60 divided by 3 will become 20. And then after that, it won't do plus, because plus come after the floor division. So it will do floor division. So 9 floor division of 6 will come as 1. And then in the end, it will do the addition. So this is how the answer will come as 21. So data type Boolean is used to store two values, which is true or false. These are good for a lot of comparison purpose. All the comparators when we use that result in either true or false. And below are some of the examples which are there for comparison. Let's try some of these. A equal to 1, B equal to 1. And if I say A double equal B. So double equal means it will check if both the values are equal, it will result be true. So it gives him true value. At the same time, if I say A is greater than B, which is not in our case, so it should return me false. But if I say A is greater than equal to B, it should result me true, because it is not greater but it is equal. So it's greater than or equal. So same way, less than will work. And there is another operator which is not equal to. So for example, let's say take another variable, A is equal to 5, B equal to 10. In this case, A is not equal to B. So if I say A not equal to B, which is true in this case, so it will return me true. So this is how Booleans can be used along with different kind of comparators. Now there are combinations which can be applied on Boolean operators. For example, and or not. What happens? So for example, if I have A equal to 1 and B equal to 2, let's say I want to check if A is less than B and A equal to 1. So here I am combining two comparison operators by AND. That means both of these should be true. So if both of these are true, in case of AND, I'll get an answer as true. In case of OR, any of these two operators can be true, will give me a answer as true. Like for example, if I say if A is less than B or A is greater than B, in this case it will give me true, because the OR operators checks on the both hand sides. Any one of this is true, which is in this case this one is true. And not, it will give the opposite result. For example, not A is greater than B. So this will be true in this case, because A is greater than B will give you false and not will make it opposite, so it will give you true. So there are something called truth table for and or. Like for example, true and true will be true, true and false will be false, and so on. So in case of and, you will see if both the things are true, you get true, otherwise you get false. But here is in case of or, if both the things are false, you get false, otherwise you get true. Let's see how the data type values get converted to Boolean using a bool function. So bool of any number other than 0 is converted into true. So bool of 0 will be always false. Boolean of blank will be false, and Boolean of string, empty string will be false, but Boolean of anything else in the string will always be true. So this is a good check if we want to see if the string is empty or not. And also, if we want to use Boolean in a calculation, false is treated as 0. For example, if I say false plus 1, it will treat false as 0, so the answer will be 1. Like in this example, we are saying false plus 5 minus true. So in this case, true will be treated as 1, false will be treated as 0. So 0 plus 5 is 5, minus 1 is 4. So just to complete the example, we have false plus 5 minus true, which will calculate to 4 plus 5 float division 4, which will result as 1. So 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is how we can use Boolean with other kind of variables. Collections are very important data type used in Python because many times we need to store different collections. And there are 4 different data types which are used to store collection. One is list, tuple, dictionary, and set. We'll go through all of them and see what are the different syntax and when it makes sense to use which one. So first one we will go through is list type under collection. So the syntax for list is the square bracket and the items under it. Let's see with an example. So to define a list, we'll put the list name. Let's say fruits. We want to define fruits as a list. It's a variable name, and we'll just put a square bracket and just we'll write orange, banana. So with this, we defined fruit as a list. If I just print it, it will give me those 3 items in the list. If I have to pick any particular item, let's say I want to print apple, so I need to pass the index. So lists are indexed as 0. Index in any kind of list start from 0. In this case, I will put fruits 0. It will give me apple. And same way, if I put fruits 1, it will be orange. And in this case, we define list as already 3 fruits. We can even define list as an empty list. So let's say color equal to this. So this way also a list is defined, right? If I see, but this is empty list, nothing is there in that. So lists are index based. Index are starts from 0, and they also have a negative index. So in our fruit example, so the index for apple is 0. Here it is 1. For orange, here it is 2. We can even start it from the right hand side because sometimes we don't know how many items are there and we want to pick the last item. In that case, it starts from -1. So if I say fruits -1, this will give me the last item in the list. And even if I say fruits -2, it will give me the second last item from the list. So negative index property is also very useful. We can concatenate 2 lists. So for example, we have a list already which is fruits. It has 3 fruits. Let's say I create new list, more fruits. So I have another list, more fruits. So I can say, if I want to concatenate, I can say fruits equal to plus more. Now if I print fruits, I will see everything got concatenated. So we have 5. So the concatenation works with the plus sign, same as other variables we have seen. So then there are predefined methods in list. We'll continue using the same example, fruits and more fruits. So in this example now we have these 5 fruits, and if we want to append another item at the end, so we can use append method. So we can use fruits.append, and let's say I want to append pineapple. So it gets appended at the end. So if I print fruits again, it will show me one more fruit added at the end. So extend is another way of doing it, but in that case we can extend multiple items at the end. So for example, now I want to say fruits dot extend. Here I can pass multiple items. So here I am trying to extend by adding 2 more fruits. Let's see. So this is the difference. So appends 1 item at a time. In extend, you can even pass another list and that will get extended. Remove will remove the item, first occurrence of the item. So let's say, for example, fruits.remove. Let's say you want to remove mango. And if I print fruits again, so mango is gone. Now insert is to use in inserting a single item at a particular index. So let's say if I want to insert mango and I want to insert at the first index, 0th index means first item. So we can use like this. So if I print fruits again, so mango is back starting from the 0th index. Then sorting is there. So you just sort, just simply sort the list. So we have a sorted list now. And index gives the first occurrence of the item. Like let's say I want to see where is the orange in this list. So I'll just say fruit dot index of orange, and I can find that it is the third index. So it's 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So these are the basic methods available in the list type of collection. And now there are some functions also which can be used with collection type list, which is like min, max, length, sum. So continuing our example, so we have this fruits as a list which has like 8 items, right? Let's say I want to check the length of this list fruit. So it gives me length as 8. I think this min, max and sum will work for a more like an integer kind of a list. So let's try to create a new list. Numbers equal to 4. So this is a list I have with numbers, and if I want to see what is the minimum of in this list, it'll give you 1. If I say max of num, it give me 4. If I say sum of these, it will be 10. So this way you can try out examples to get familiar with functions and methods available for lists. Another important thing about list is slicing. So a lot of time we have a large list and we want to slice it to get a sub list out of it. So for example, in our example case, we have fruits where we have 8 different fruits. So we want to access portion of that list. So what we can do in that case, we need to pass 2 indexes, index 1, index 2. And it does not include the last index. For example, if I say fruits and I say 0 to 3. So it will give me a portion starting from 0th index, including 0th index, which is apple, then 1, then 2. It won't include 3. So it will give me these first 3 elements. Oh, I should have, we need to use the full colon in that. So if we say fruits 0 to 3 with the full colon, it will give me those 3. So if you see, it does not change the main list. Fruits will all have the same, but it is giving you the slice of that when we need to do it. And if we don't give any starting point, then it will by default take it as 0. So if I say this 3, it will automatically take the starting point as 0. It will still give me the same thing. And if I don't give the end point, it will take the end point as the full list. So let's say I want to give, now I want to do from, starting as 4. I want to start from index 4, which will be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So starting page, I want everything. So I'll just leave the second argument as blank. So it will take the full list. So starting page, it will give me everything. Oh, we had 2 times page in this. Okay, so that's why it is giving me that. So other way of looking list in terms of string. So if I say name equal to Scott. So Scott is nothing but a list of characters. So for example, if I say names 0, it will give me S, right? And if I want first 3 letters of this, I can use a slice function here also. So I can use name 0 to 3. So it will give me SEO. So strings are nothing but list, and same kind of functions and methods are applicable to strings as well. And now there is a third argument also sometime we give in the list that tells us how many characters we want to leave when we want to pull the list out of it. So for example, same in the name. If I say name, I want 0 to 4, 0 to, let's say 5, that is 0 to 5, and I say 2. So it's a skip character. So it will skip one item. So it skipped this C and it skipped this D. So you can by third parameter you can define a skip sequence. That means give me every second items. This is what we are seeing in this case. And if I say name 0 to 5 and say skip count 3, and we are saying give me every third, then so it will give me first, and then it's give me the third from there, which is T. So this is the third argument also we should be aware of, which is used in slice in the list. Another collection type which is pretty similar to list but with some differences is tuples. So we'll go through the differences and similarity. So the one big difference between list and tuple is tuples are immutable. That means they cannot be changed, and we'll go through some example. And while defining the tuple, we use round brackets. Let's see some example of tuples. So to define tuples, let's say we have a tuple of numbers. We'll define it using the round bracket. Let's say 100. These are my 3 numbers in tuple. If I want to access the 0th one, so same way I can access like we do it in list. The only difference here is it is immutable, that you cannot change the number in this, or you cannot change that value in the tuple. So for example, if I say num0, I want to change it to 50, so it is gonna say it does not support assignment. That means tuples once defined cannot be changed. So for what kind of examples we can use, like days of week is a good example, because days of week does not change, so we can use tuple. And why do we use it? Because these are pretty fast. These are pretty fast compared to list, like month in a year. This kind of list which does not change, there you can use tuples, and it increases the processing speed a lot compared to strings. And other way of defining tuple could be without even using the brackets. So tuple example is equal to A, B, C. So this way, if I print tuple example, it gets this value. So this is another way of defining it without brackets. And once you have something as defined as a tuple, that can be converted into list and vice versa. For example, if I want to see my list equal to list tuple x, so I'm passing tuple x into it and I'm trying to convert that into a list. So now if I say what is the value in my list is took the same value from the tuple, but it got converted into list. So if I say my tuple is equal to tuple dot my list, this way I can convert my list into tuple. So my tuple now will have those value. So those kind of conversion is possible. And another example where tuple can be used, which is especially known as tuple assignment. Like we can have different variable assigned at the same time using tuple. So for this example itself, in my tuple, I have 3 values A, B, C. Let's say I have a variable where A, where B, where C. I'm defining 3 variables, and I want to, let's say I'm defining 3 variables, and I want to assign these 3 variable values from this tuple. When I hit that, it automatically assigns where A, B, C those values. So let's say where A will be equal to A, where B equal to B, like that. So this is known as tuple assignment, which is also a very good feature in tuple. Dictionaries is another collection data types in Python, which is mainly used to store key value pairs. So here we define all the values and the associated keys with that. Let's take a look at some of the examples. So for example, I want to define a dictionary which is like phone book, and we use curly bracket. So here key, I can use anything as key. So I'm gonna say Scott, and let's say his number is 123. Then I'm gonna use Rocky as another key, and his number is 456. So I have defined a dictionary with 2 values and with 2 keys for the same. So as a phone book, I will see those 2 values. And in this case, I define dictionary with some values. I can even define dictionary as an empty dictionary to start with, right? So if I say f book is equal to, if I want to start something blank, that's also possible. So in this case, you will see it's a blank dictionary. Now, how do I access it? So let's say I want to access phone book. Then we need to pass the key in this. Here the key will be, let's say, Scott, and it gives me the corresponding value. How do I add a value into dictionary? So in this case, I say phone book John. So I'm defining the key, and here I'll tell the value 7 and 9. So if I open my phone book again, so I get another value which is added as John in this. So I defined what is the value of this. If I use the same value again, phone book John, it will update it. So the Update and adding is the same way. So you just pass the value of key and the corresponding value. If the value already exists against the same key, then it will update it, otherwise it will add new. So how do we remove a value? Simply the same way we use delete and put phone book, and let's say John in this case, and it deletes the value. So let's see what is there in our phone book of that. So we are left with two values where we started. So this is dictionary, a special combination with key value pairs. Another data type under collection is sets. So sets also use a curly bracket as it is shown here, and it can store multiple values. So all the items in the sets are unordered, unchangeable, and do not allow duplicate values. And it can store any data type. So you can see we are storing string and numbers in the set. So here is a comparison of different type of collections which we talked about. We talked about list, tuple, set, and dictionary. And here are some of the characteristics, and based upon this we can use the one which is appropriate for the requirement. For example, lists and tuples are ordered, whereas sets and dictionaries there is no order. And lists, the value can be changed, and dictionary can also be changed, whereas tuple and sets are immutable. The values cannot be changed in that. And the duplicates are allowed in lists as well as in tuples, whereas in sets and dictionaries there are no duplicates allowed. So based upon the requirement and the need, we need to see which collection types make more sense, and then we have all these options available in Python. So next skill we're gonna cover is control flow with decision and loop. So in this section of Python basics, we are gonna cover control flow with decisions and loops. There are two categories. One is branching statements, where we will cover if, elif, else statements, and then we will also go through iteration using while or for loop. Control flow using if, else, or elif. In programming, a lot of time we need to control the flow of the program using if else statement. So this is the syntax. We write if and a condition which results into true and false. If the condition is true, then it will run this code block. Otherwise, it will go to next one where it will check for elif, where it check for other condition. If that condition is true, it will run this code block. Else, it will return the code block which is written at the else. Let's try it with some example. Let's say we have a variable age, which is to start with, let's put any number, 20. And we want to put a condition to see if this person is an adult or a minor. So here we can put a condition like that. If age greater than equal to 18, colon, I'm going to say print you are an. So here I'm going to put else print you are a minor. So in this condition, you will notice that we haven't used elif. So elif is optional, and even else is optional. So, but in this condition, we wanted to use a combination to see if condition works. Then we are gonna run this code block which is saying you are an adult. Else we are gonna run this code block. So one thing you would notice that there is an indentation. So what is the start and end of this code block in Python? That is defined by this indentation. So anything which is one indent inside, that will be running if this condition is true. So in this example, since the age is 20, which is greater than 18, so it should give you are an adult. Let's run it. So it is giving us the answer that you are an adult. To see how we can use elif, let's try to modify this example. So in this example, we can put some more conditions. Here it is saying if the person is greater than 18, then it is then we are going to say adult, and we are going to say elif age is less than equal to 2. Then we are going to say print you are a baby. Else you are a minor. So what will happen if the person is greater than 18? This thing will run and it will skip everything else. Now if this thing does not run, then it will go to next statement, next condition, which is going to check if the age is less than 2, less than equal to 2, then this will run. Else, then the final else will run. So let's try this out. Now let's say we want to do it for 15. In this case, the result is you are a minor. That means Since it is not greater than equal to 18, it's not less than equal to 2. So it ended up going into the else statement. Now if I change the age to, let's say 1 and run it, then it is saying you are a baby. So in this case, what happened? This if condition did not satisfy, then it went to Elif. Then this condition satisfied, then it ended there. It did not go to the end statement. So this is how if, Elif and else can be used. And you can have multiple Elifs in this. So you can have another combination, and let's say even you can say if your age is greater than equal to 13, and yeah, so here I'm gonna say if the age is greater than equal to 13, you are a teen. So if it is greater than equal to 18, then you are an adult and nothing will run. If it is less than 2, then this condition will run. If it is greater than 13, then this will run. Otherwise, everything else will be categorized as this. So let's try to run it for 15, and it will say you are a teen because this is where this condition is being run. So this is about it. This is how we can use if else along with Elif to control the flow of the code. You can also have something called nested if conditions. That means you can have a if condition. Let's say a is a number, let's say 15. You can put a condition like if a is less than equal to 20, and within that you want to see if a to 0. So if a is less than equal to 20, in that case you are checking if a modulo 2 is 0. That means you can say print it's an even number and less than 20. Else you can say it's an odd less than. And finally you can say here else print it's greater than 20. Now let's run it for 15. We'll see it's an odd number less than 20. That means it is coming in this condition. Now let's say we want to run it for 18, and it will get into your even number in this condition. And same way, if we run it for, let's say 25, it will skip all this and go to that it's a greater than 20. So this is how the if statement can be nested as well. So under iteration, we have for loop. For loop is used to access everything in a list. The syntax is for, we need to define an item variable. For item variable in list name, and we can run the code. And the same can be used for range. We'll show some example. So for example, we can say for a variable in range 9, print hello. Let's try some of these examples. So for example, let's create a list. Fruits, apple, banana, orange. And then we write a for statement for f in fruits, colon, print f, and let's run it. So if you see, it will give a result of all the items in the list. So you can do any operation here in this code block. Under this for loop, you can do any operation here. If we want to do something similar for numbers, we can use a range function to get a number. So example, for a in range, let's say 10, print this is range using for loop. So if I do this, it should print the same line because that's what we are saying. It should print the same line for 10 times. It will print that. And we can use this variable a also. Let's say instead of that, I want to say print a. So it is starting from 0 up to 9th. It is printing this value. So this is also a quick way to use range and the for loop. So even we can define range like start and end. Let's say I want to start from 10 to 20 and I want to print a. So it will start from 10 and it will go up to 20. It skips the last one because start is, it skips the last one. So 10 to 19 it will print. And also there is a third parameter which we can give, which is called as step value. So let's say I want to take 2 steps at a time and I want to print this. So in this case, it will start with 1, then 3, then 5, then 7. Let's try another example of range and for loop. to calculate factorial. So factorial is nothing but, if you know what is the factorial of 5, so 5 factorial is nothing but 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, right? So I'm just putting this in comments so that we know what problem we are trying to solve. So we want to calculate the factorial of 5. Let's say f equal 5, that's a variable for, that's a number for which we want to calculate the factorial. And let's start answer as 1 and we will update the value of this answer. So here we'll put a for loop, and I is a temporary variable of the for loop for I in range starting 1 to f plus 1, because we want to reach up to 5. So since it does not capture the last one, so we'll go to 6, right? So we'll go to f plus 1, and here we will say answer equal to answer times I. So in the first iteration it will multiply it with 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, up to 5 it will go, right? So if I say now print answer, and it should print the factorial of 5, which is 120. Let's try it. So we are getting the answer as 120. This is one way of using a for loop along with the range to calculate the factorial of a function. You can try this out for practice. Other iteration method we use is while loop. So while loop syntax is while condition and a code block, where as long as that condition is met, it will continue to run that code. So let's try some example. So here, for example, let's say we want to print 1 to 10. So let's say I equal to 1, initializing a variable, while I is less than equal to 10, print I. But here is a catch. In for loop, it print I. So this will continue. So this loop will continue to print as long as it meets this condition, which is I is less than equal to 10. And if we don't do anything within this block, it will continue to run forever, because we are not doing anything to make this condition as false. So what we can do here is we can say I plus 1 by this statement. So what will happen is every time this loop will run, I value will increase by 1. And at the time when it reaches more than 10, it will come out of that loop. Let's run it. So it prints from 1 to 10. And once it reaches 10, after that it becomes 11. It goes here, it does not satisfy the condition, and it comes out of it. So this is how you can use while statement. You can use this to do any other kind of operations also. For example, you simply can print something and it will do whatever you want to write it here, it will do that same thing here multiple times. And if you want to run something forever, you can simply not put anything to make this condition false, or you can simply write here while true. So if you run this, it will continuously print that to terminate it. So this is how while statement works. So within the iterative loops, there are some special statements and clauses which are used, like break, continue, pass, and else. So break clause is used to get out of the innermost loop. For example, we have a loop for I in range 1 to 100, print I if is equal to 5, break. Let's see what happens. So it printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As soon as it reaches 5, it came out of that loop. This is how we can use break, or even you can use it for while instead of for. So any kind of iteration we can use. The break will get you out from that loop, the innermost loop. When you say innermost, there could be nested loop, there could be a for loop within a for loop, but this break will take you out from the innermost loop. Another clause we have is else. So every loop can have one else clause. So when the loop terminates through the execution of the iterable, or from there is a false statement, then this clause is run, but not when it is terminated by a break statement. So continuing the same example, I can say else print loop is completed. So if I run it as is, it will not go to else statement, because here once it reaches 5, it's gonna just break. It's gonna break from the whole loop. So let's try it. So you see that it printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it did not go there. But if I make it, let's say, run for 100, so, or let's say, this condition, I'm gonna put this condition is equal to 500. So it will never reach to that break statement. And let's make it even smaller. So now this loop will print 1 to 10 without going to break statement, because it will never reach 500. So it will run for 10 times, print a number, and once this loop is over, it will print at the end, it will print the else. Let's see that. So it printed from 1 to 9. That's a range. It does not take the last element. And after that, it printed else. So this is what else statement is. So next one is continue. The continue makes the compiler run to the next iteration of the loop. It does not break it. Like if it is if, it just breaks the loop. But continue will let it continue. Let's try to modify the same example to see use of continue. Now in this example, let's say I want to print only the even number, and if it is not an even number, I just want to continue. So here what we will say, we are printing I, but if it's an even, then don't print it, because we want to print only odd number. So how do I put the condition? If I module 2 equals 0, that means if it's a this, then I'm going to say continue. Else, now hey, this is not else, this is print. So only when it is this one, it matches this condition, that means it's an even number. It will not go to this one. Whatever conditions are written after that, it will know, but it will continue to the next iteration. So in this case, if it is an even number, it should continue to next iteration and does not execute this print. So it should print only the cases when it did not fall into. It should print cases when it did not fall into this one, into this condition, which means it should print only the odd number. Let's try. If you can see, it will print only the odd numbers. So this is how we use continue. Pass does nothing. So there are some cases when we want to tell that there is no action needed, but we still want to have a code there, because it could be a syntactical requirement, or we just want to have a placeholder where we want to add some code later. So for example, I want to do something special on this case, and I'll say else print. So if it is an even number, I want to do something special, else I want to print it. But in this case, I want to keep just a placeholder, right? And later I want to come and print this thing. Later I want to come and put some other code here, right? So if I run this, it will whenever it hits this thing, it will just pass. It will not do anything, and it will again end up printing only this odd numbers. Many the codes here, same thing. So this pass statement was making it run without any problem, without doing anything. So if I remove that placeholder and I try to run, it will give an error, because it is expecting something after this. But at this moment, I just want to say, if it is this, just don't do anything. And to make it syntactically correct, I am putting a pass statement so that there is no error in the execution. And later, maybe if I want, I can replace it with some other code, or I can just keep it as is. So this is the use of pass. So with this, we are done with the control flow with decision and loops. So next topic we are going to cover is perform input and output operations. So under this topic, we'll cover various kind of input and output operations. Most of those will be related to file input and output. Also console input and output operations we will cover. So file input and output operations. To perform an operation on a file, we need to do 3 mandatory steps. One is opening the file, then use the file to read or write, and then closing the file. And here the syntax. We create a variable, it could be any variable, and we say equal to open file name and a mode. We'll talk more about mode, but in this we tell how we want to open that file. And then we do the operations, and then using the same variable name, we'll close that file. Let's try an example. For example, as per syntax, I create a variable f and I say open my first file.txt, that's a file name, and I'm giving mode as w, which is for writing. We'll talk about more modes down the line. So no error means there is a variable created, a file variable, and let's say I want to say write hello, this is test. So 18 means 18 characters are written to the file, and I say file.close. So with this, my first file.txt should have created with this text added into it. So here it is, my first file. So I can see it here, hello, this is test, that is written into it. So this is how you write a file. So this is a simple example of using the syntax to open a file, perform the operation and close the file. Now we saw that we have used W as the mode here. So there are different kind of modes which can be used. So when you use R, then the file is open in a read-only mode. When you use W, which we used in this example, it is used for writing. And if there is a file with the same name already there, so it will erase that and create a new file with the same name. And A is used for appending, because in writing it will just write it again. Let's say whatever we hello, this is test we have written. So if I open that same file again, and I write, let's say test2, and then let's say after close, if we go check that file, it will have just test2. That means it has overwritten what was there because it was opened as a W, which is right. But however, if we append, any data written to the file is automatically added to the end. And also now there is another mode, A+. It is same as append, but the file position is at the beginning. So also when we write something, the cursor in the file goes to the end. But if you use A+, it will write it in the start. There are more R+, which open the file for both reading and writing. W+ also used for both reading and writing. And it create files if does not exist, otherwise it truncate. And X, it's create a new file for writing. So X mode is sometimes helpful because if you use W mode, it will just overwrite even if the file in the same name. But X mode will not do that. It will give a warning. So sometimes X mode is used when we want to see if the file already exists, then it will give a warning. It will avoid overwriting. So these are different modes. We'll use a couple of other modes in next examples. So there are some more modes which can be used to define whether it's a text or binary mode. So normally files operations is done in text mode. If you don't specify, it is automatically assumed text mode. But if you want to specify, you can use it as T. And if you want to, while writing, if you want to write in next line, we can pass \n. It's like a next line escape sequence. And B we can use if we want to do some operation on a binary mode. So and this mode can be combined with read write. For example, if we want to use write and B, write in a binary mode, then we can use WB as a mode. Or if you want to use read but open in a binary mode, then instead of just using R, we can use RB. We'll see those examples in coming slides. Let's try to enter multi-line into this file. So we are going to open this file again and write first line \n, second line \n, third line etc. f.close. So we have written multi-line into this. Yeah, so if you see, there are 3 lines written into it. So that's how we can use \n to write into next line. Let's look into various read methods. So we have read method to read the entire file. We have read lines to get the lines into a list. And then we have seek and tell, which we are gonna show in some examples. We know we have this file saved in the last example. It has 3 lines in it. First line, second line, third line we have added. So how do we open and read this file? So same thing, like for any file operation, we need to first open the file. So here we are going to say file f equal to open the file name, which is my first file.txt, and here we are going to open in a read mode. So the file is open in read mode. So if I just want to use read as a method, you can just say print f.read. So it's going to read it and it's going to print it. So it has read the file and printed it, and now I can say close. So this is a simple use of a read method, reading entire file at a time. Now read lines, on the other hand, what it does, it provides a list of lines in that file. For example, if I open the same file again in the read mode, and I say instead of that, let's say A equal to A will be the list which it will return. I'll say f.read lines. So let's print what's there in A. So if you see, it has given me 3 lines, or we can say for n in A, print n. So that is another way of reading it. So these are the 3 lines which are captured in A as a list, right? So it is captured in A as a list by this command. Now when we printed A, it printed the entire list. If I put the for loop on the list A, I can print one item at a time, which will print it like this. So this is the two difference between read lines and read. Now talking about seek, so what happens? Let's create a file to see how this seek works. So we're going to create a simple file, fs equal to write my seek file.txt. It should be actually open. So I'm opening a file this with the write and fs.write. This is for seek test and fs.close. Now let's say I open this file and I say fs equal to open my seek file.txt in read mode, and I just simply say read. It is printing this is for seek test. If I again say read, it will print blank. So why this happened? Because the cursor or the pointer, when it read the file, it reached till the end of the file. And if I say again read, it is trying to read from here, which is blank. So this is where we can use seek function to move it back to whichever position we want. So let's say I say fs.seek, I make it to 0th position. So now seek is moved to 0th position, that which is here. Now if I read, then it should read the entire file again. So fs.read, it is reading the entire file again. And I can use tell function to see where the pointer is. So in this case, it should be somewhere here. So let's see what we can use. fs.tell, it is saying it's the 21st position, right? So I can, let's say, again move it to, let's say I want to start reading from here for now, right? So let's say I move it to 5 position, and if I say read, it is reading from this position because we pointed it to here. So this is how we can control the reading cursor by using seek, and also we can know the current position by using tell function. The other way to open a file is using a with keyword. The benefit of with keyword is that it makes sure it closes the file even if there is an exception. So we don't need to explicitly close a file. So let's see an example how to use with keyword. We say with open file name my first file.txt mode as f, and then we say f.read. Any normal operation we can use. So in this case, it is reading the file. We did not put close, so it automatically closes it. Also, there is another function which we can use. It's called mode. So let's see how to use mode. Let's say I open a file fr saying that open file name testf.txt in write mode, and if I just say fr mode, I print that, it tells me what mode it is. So this is also helpful to understand in which mode the file is open. We can use file name.mode. So far we have looked into various examples of using text file, places we can want to use CSV file also. In that case, we need to include a module. It's called CSV. So we'll import CSV, and then we can say csv.reader, and we get that file name here. So we can use this reader function to return all the rows from the file into a list. So, and we can even define delimiter, like by what we want to differentiate with a CSV file. So you can try this example also, but this is another way of using CSV. Let's see how we can run Python files through command line and can pass arguments. So we will use import sys to use command line, and also we'll use argv to access the different arguments. Let's first simply create a file. I'm going to create a file, my test, and I'm going to create this as a py. So let's open this file using Notepad, and say import sys and simply say print hello from the file. I'm gonna save it. My test.py file is saved. Now we will go to the command prompt. So this is the command prompt. Let's see if that file is there. Here it is, my test.py. So here to run that file, to execute that file, I'm gonna simply say python my test.py. So it has printed hello from the file. So we'll use Python here and we'll pass the file itself, the file name itself. So the Python compiler will open that file and execute it. Now what if we want to pass some arguments to that file? Then we will use argv in the file. So let's modify that file. Now since we need to accept some arguments, so let's modify it. We're gonna say a equal to sys.argv1 and b equal to sys.argv2. These are the two arguments we will pass, and let's say we want to here print a plus b. Okay, so that's all we want to do this file to do, to read the two arguments and add them and print it. So now we saved it. Let's run the same command and let's say we pass 5 and 10. So this is reading those arguments as string. By default it will read those arguments as string. So if I pass first Scott Thomas, it is doing what is expected to be done, and we can change it to integer. Let's try doing that. In that case we just need to say int of integer of the argument. Now this will treat this as a mathematical function and give us the mathematical sum. 5 and 10 will give us 15. So one thing to notice here is it is taking this argument as argv1, not 0, because this thing, the file name itself is 0th argument for this. So for example, just for testing, if I want to say print sys.argv0, right, and save it, and here if I just run that same command, it is giving me the file name because that is what is there in the 0th argument. So this covers how we can use the files, the code in the file using import.sys and run it through the command line. With this, we are done with this topic, which is perform input and output operations. Next we will see documented structure code. In this section of Python basics, we'll cover documented structure code. We'll see various way of commenting and documentation strings, as well as all about functions. So there are two different ways to comment. One is using a hash for single line comment, and if we want to comment for multiple lines, then we use triple quote. So let's see some examples. So comments are used to make the program easy to read. So let's say I have written something. Let's say a equal to 1, b equal to 2, c equal to a plus b. But if we want to write something at the top and say this program is for addition, right? So I can't just simply write it like that, because if I run it, it will throw an error. So that the Python compiler knows that this is just a comment, we use this syntax. This hash is used for a single line, so we can use this like that as well. We can have multiple line, adds two values. This is math function or math program. So these are the 3 lines of comments I have added using the hash function. Or if with a multi-line comment and we can simply use triple quote and then we can write, and when we are end, we can just close it. So in this case, Python will ignore all these lines which are covered in there. I mean, we can even start from next line. That's also fine. So whatever is there after this triple quote, it will take it as a multi-line comment. We can use as single triple quote or double triple quote for the multi-line comment. So next is very important topic, which is function. So what is a function? Function is a reusable code which has a name. It can take arguments and return data, and it can be used again and again without the need of writing it multiple times. We can just call it. Like we have already seen some examples. When we say print and we pass an argument to this, it prints that line. We can define our own function using a definition, and this is a syntax. So first define it and then we call it. And the condition is the function to be defined before it is called, and the indentation matter. We'll go through all this. Let's say I want to define a function which adds two values. So we're gonna pass a and b as two values, and it says c equal to a plus b, print c. Very simple function. It takes two values, add them and print them. So how do I call it? I'll simply say adds and pass 3 and 4. So if I run this program, it will go through this add function, add the value and print it. So the result came as 7. So this is a very simple definition, and anytime I need to use this, I can just keep calling that function. So I can call it 2 times. So instead of writing this code again and again, it is just calling that function. So one point to remember is the function definition should be before the call. So let's say I can't call it here. Let's say I can't call it here before defining it, because compiler will not understand what is adds because it is never defined. So it will throw an error like this. It says name adds is not defined. So function should be defined before it is called, and this is the syntax, and this is how do we call it, and these are the parameters. We are going to get more into parameter details in next slide. So here we will look more details into parameters. So parameters are also called positional parameters because the position matters, order matters, and we also have option for optional parameters. Then we're going to talk about function return and doc string, also known as documentation string. So let's try to do this with an example. Let's create a function, define greet, and let's pass fname, lname, and what it will do, it will say hello, and it is gonna say concatenate the string fname, lname. So whatever two names we will say, it is just gonna greet that person with first name and last name. And let's put exclamation at the end. So here we're gonna run it. We're gonna say, so let's say we pass to parameter John Doe, and if we run it, it is gonna say hello John Doe, right? So this is the function we have created. Now here when they say the parameters are positional, so that means the order matters, because if I just say here something Doe John, so in this case it's gonna print it opposite way, because it is matching whatever first parameter is given, it is going to first name, second parameter is going to second name. So that is how it will be positional. And in some cases we can have optional parameter as well. So let's say last name is optional, right? So we are gonna make it as another exclamation marks. So if someone is not giving a last name, let's say we want to call it an second exclamation mark. So in that case, if we just pass one variable, right, and we run it, it will substitute the second variable with the default value because the second parameter is made optional. So it say hello John, but at the same time, if I pass second parameter, it will use the value actually passed, not this default value. So it uses actual value. So this way you can define a parameter as optional. You can even have both the parameters optional. That is also fine. And since the order matters, we can, and let's say we want to actually pass values as, we can, let's say we can actually want to pass in the different order. What we can do, we can say, okay, this value is this, equal this. So in this case, it will look at, even though it's in a different order, here we are defining, okay, the last name is this, first name is this. So it will give the first value to the right parameter and the second value to the respective parameter. So if we run this, then it will still print as John. So these are some of the function parameter properties are there. And now about function return. So far we have been using print. So instead of print, we can say return. Instead of print, we can get that value into this and return that value instead of printing it. And let's say then we simply say return A. So here when we call this function, we need to get that value, we need to receive that value. So in this case, we will receive that value in B, and let's say we print B here, and that should do the pretty much same thing, but here in this case, instead of printing it here, we gave this value back, and here we are using it in the main code. Let's run it. The same thing. So we pass two parameters, the function receives those two parameters, it did this operation and return that value, and we use this value here. So this another example could be addition. So if I say A and B, simple mathematical function, we can simply say return A times A plus B, and here I can say C equal to addition, let's say 1 and 2. These are the two values we are passing now this function, and we say print C. So this is another way of looking at it. So it should return as 3, return at 3. So this is how functions return value. We can even have function returning multiple values. So in that case we say A and B. So let's say I'm just whatever value is coming I'm returning, and I'm going to return that to C and D. So it is just to show an example. I'm passing these two values and this function is returning two values, and let's say we print C and D. So we got 1 and 2 back. So another example for this could be, let's say maths, and we are going to say A plus B as addition, comma A minus B. So here I'm going to pass two values, let's say 5 and 3, and I'm going to return A plus B as addition, which will come in C, and A minus B as another value which will come in D. To simplify it a little bit further, we can say sum equal to, or say S equal to A plus B, which is sum, and minus equal to A minus B, and I'm gonna return both S and M, sum and minus. So I'm gonna pass 5 and 3. The addition will be getting S and M, and both are returned in C and D. And let's say the sum is C, right? And the difference is, it's a minus thing which came in our variable D. And if I run this addition, okay, I used maths as a name, so it gave me this. The sum is 8, the difference is 2. So the point which we are trying to see it here is, it is returning two values, comma separated, and we are receiving it in two different variables which we are using it in our main program. So doc string or documentation string. So when we define a function, the first line of the function is reserved to put a special kind of comment which is called doc string, which will be used as a help for the consumer of the function. For example, if I write it here, I put 3 quotes, this function returns sum and differences, for example, sum and differences, right? So, and I'll end it by 3 quotes. We can use single quote or double quote. Now when I write this function here, so you see that whatever we have written, that is showing it as a help, that this function returns sum and difference. So that is very important to know this, how doc string is defined, and it will be only what you write in the first line. So that's a special place for a function. You write it in the first line, and that will be displayed here. You wanna use you can use double quotes 3 times, and then you can define this as multiple lines, right? Whatever you wanna call it, help is here, and now you have defined this thing multiple lines. And so this is about docstring. These are some of the examples of inbuilt functions which we use, like conversion function. To convert to a string we use str function, integer we use int function, float we have this function. For example, a equal to 1 and b equal to 0. If I simply say c equal to a plus b and try to run it, it's gonna give an error because it cannot, there are two different data types. So in this case I'm gonna convert by using this function into integer, so that now this a, which was a string, now it will become an integer using this int function. So now if you run it, it will add these two numbers. Yep, no error. So you print C, it should print 1, which is A plus B. So same way, if we want to use this as a string, we can convert, instead of converting A, we can convert B into str, B into string. So now it will perform a concatenation operation because A is already a string, which is a string of 1, and B will be considered as a string 0. So it will give you 10. It gives you 10. Now it is doing a concatenation. This way we can do it. Same we can do for float, Boolean. And input function is used to get any value from the user, right? So what's your name? So it will prompt user to enter a name, and that will be stored in A. And one thing to remember here is, every time we use input function, it will always give you a string. If you want to do some kind of integer operation, you need to convert it using one of these conversion. So for example, let's see, we say print hello A. If we run it, it's gonna prompt what's your name. The user says John, it say hello John. So now if we say enter a number, and we want to multiply that number with 5, and we say B equal to A times 5, and we try to print B. In this case, let's see what happens. In this case, if we say enter a number and the user enter 10, and when we hit enter, it will not multiply 10 to 5 and make it 50, but it will write 10 5 times. So why this happened? Because as we said earlier, anything which comes into a string through input, it comes as a string. So it is treating 10 as a string. If you want to use it as an integer, you need to use the conversion function and convert it into integer. And when you run it again, now it will, let's say the person is giving you 10, and then it will give you 50, because now it is converted into integer. So this is how this function can be used. Eval is another function which is used for kind of evaluation, right? So for example, eval, and here you can say, you can give any expression here and it will evaluate it, like 4 plus 5. So it will evaluate the expression, and it will give the result in the appropriate data type. So it will run it and give it 9. So if I say 4 divided by 2, so it will now make it as a calculation. After that, it will give you as a float. So this is used for more mathematical function. These are some of the examples for the built-in function which are used in pretty much every program. Another thing which we need to be aware, what's the difference between function and method. So methods are associated with objects. For example, we have seen string methods, like we were using an example of fruit as a string, and when we say lower, it converts the value for that object, and it is associated with that object to lower. So that was a method. On the other hand, functions are independent. Like we have seen in previous screen example of adding two numbers. Those are not associated with any object. You can pass any two numbers and the result was coming. So that's the difference between function versus method. If I create a string fruit equal to apple, and now this the system knows that this is a string, and if I say upper, this will convert this string into upper. I can print it. So this is a method in this case because it is associated with this, and you always use it with the object dot upper, right? So at the same time, you can see, however, print is a function. Print is a function because we have not associated with it with any object, but we are passing whatever we want as an argument. But print itself is not associated with any other object. So print is a function. So that's the difference. You can try these examples of methods for string, and print we have already seen as a function in the previous examples. So this covers another topic, which is document and structure code. Next we will see troubleshooting and error handling. So in this section of Python basics, we will cover troubleshooting and error handling. We'll see how to analyze, detect and fix code segments, and also how to analyze and construct code segments that handle exceptions. In the troubleshooting, we are going to first understand what all different types of errors are there. The first one is syntax error. The syntax errors are the error in the syntax of the program itself, which does not let the program to compile. We get the error during compilation itself. For example, let's say I write print and we are not putting a closing loop, let's say that, and try to run it. It's gonna give a syntax error. You can read it here. So this is an example of the syntax error which did not let the program run. These are easy to catch, and the compiler itself will catch you and it will point you exactly which line to be corrected. The second type of errors are runtime error. These errors will come during runtime. The compiler will be able to compile the code, but during runtime these errors will come. For example, divide by 0 error. Let's say I have a equal to 5, b equal to 0, and c is equal to a divided by b, and I want to say print c. So in this case, when we compile, the error will not be there. So there won't be any syntax error because syntax wise this is correct. But when we try to execute the program, then this error will come. So here it is saying 0 division error or divide by 0 error, which came during the execution of the program. Or if you want to see, let's say we are asking b as an input from the user, enter a number. So this will make it more evident that when we ran this program, it ran without an issue. That means it compiled without an issue. But when the user entered a value, let's say here he entered 0 and entered, then this divide by 0 error came. And third type of error is programming error, which is neither syntax error or runtime error. It is like how we understand the requirement and what did we code. So for this kind of error, these are not like purely technical errors. So we have testing teams there continuously try to see if the program is written as per the required specification. So technically that thing could be correct, but whether it is written as per the specification, those are programming logic error. Next we will see error handling. How do we handle an error? So here is the syntax, which is try, except, else, and finally, and we put the code block in between. So going back to the previous example of divide by 0 error, let's say we have a equal to 5, b equal to 0, and c equal to a divided by b, and here we say print c. Now if we saw that if we just run this program, it will throw an error, which is unhandled error. So what we can do in this case, we are going to put this program in try block. So what does that mean? Everything under this is in try block. So when this will run, there will be a corresponding except. So when this program will run, the try will check if there is any error. If the error is there, then instead of just throwing the error to user, it will give us a chance to write the error message here, or give us a chance to handle the error here. How do we want to handle here? For example, I can simply say, seems there is an error. So in this case, user will not see the divide by 0 error or technical detail, but simply they will see this error has occurred. Let's get this also as a value from user in the input function, enter a value, and let's run it. So it's gonna enter a value. That's that the value is entered as 0. Here it is gonna say seems there is an error occurred. So the except statement has taken that there is an error occurred, and it has shown that error to user. And now we can be more specific and define here how do we want to handle different kind of errors. But before that, let's keep it generic for now, and let's say what is the use of finally. So finally is another area block where this will run no matter whether the error occurred or not, because this we have seen that except statement will run only if the error is there, right? And we can put else also here. And now in this case, this is optional again, else is optional. So it will say seems no error, right? So there is no error occurred, so this will run. So but this finally will run whether there is an error or not, right? So this is how these 4 blocks are there, that it will check on this code block which is under try. If the exception occurs, it will run this. If the exception does not occur, it will run this else part, which is optional. And this finally will be run no matter what. So finally generally used, let's say there is a file operation we are using, a file is opened or a connection is open. So irrespective of whether error occur or not, we want to close the connection, right? So those kind of code we can put it in finally. So let's run this again and see how it looks. So it is asking to enter a value. Let's say we entered 1. So this is printed. It did not go to this one because there is no exception. So, but it went to else, right? Because that's how it was expected to go. It says seems no error. And it went to finally, because finally it will go no matter what. So if I run this program again, and now let's say this time we will make sure then exception will was 0. In this case also, it says seems there is an error occurred and program completed, and this thing ran. So this is how try, except, else, and finally works. And then there is another thing called raise error. Like we can ourselves also raise error if we want to handle it separately, differently. So how do we do that? So in that case, no matter, for example, no matter what value the user is entering, I want to raise error, raise exception. I'll just simply write that. I can put this in if else condition also, but let's say I simply write it this way. And now let's run it. So in this case, let's say I give value 1. So even though 1 will not give you any divide by 0 error, because since we were raising an exception here, so then that means it gives us to this one. The exception is raised, which is captured by except code, and it is saying seems there is an error, and finally anyway runs. So finally ran here. So this is how we can raise an exception. This is how we can handle an exception using try, except, and finally. Now in this case, since we did not specify exception name here, so it is handling all the exceptions. We can be more specific, and let's say that if it is a 0 division error, then handle it this way. There is 0 division, and we can put multiple saying that. Otherwise, like, we can keep a generic also, print some other error, right? So if it is a 0 division error, now in this case, if it is 0 division error, it will handle it this way. Otherwise, it will handle this way. So if I run this program, remove this. If I run this program and send 0 as a value, so then it specifically went into 0 division error. It did not go into some error. So it specifically handled that error. There is 0 division error, and then it ran finally. So that way we can define, we can be more specific. We can have multiple except based upon what kind of error it is there. Best way to handle different exceptions. Let's see what happens if I raise an exception here. Which one will it capture? Now I'm raising an exception. At the same time, I'm entering 1. So in this case, it did not go through 0 division error because this is not a 0 division error. I entered a value 1. But there is a normal exception, some other exception created. Then it went into this one, because this will handle the case, which is generic. And then it went to this. So this way we can define different exception handling. And what if I give 0 here so that both the exceptions are raised? So then leave that part. So with this, we are done with troubleshooting and error handling part. And the last topic left is modules and tools. In this section, we will cover modules and tools, which is the last skill as part of MTA 381 exam. In this section, we will cover different modules and tools which are available to do basic operations as well as complex computing in Python. So first, let's see how do we import a module. So to import a module, the syntax is to write import and the package name, and then all the functions, and then we can start using the functions of that module using the package name. Let's see this with an example. So I can say import math. So math is the module name, and then I can start using function within math dot, let's say, square root of 4, right? So I can simply say print math square root of 4, which is 2. We should get 2 as an answer. So this way we can import a module and we can use a function within that module. The other way of importing is you can also import individual function from a module. So you can say from math import square root. So in this case you are importing only square root, and then you can simply call that function because the function specifically is imported. So you get that same thing. So now you don't need to qualify it, but it is a good practice to always fully qualify the function, because what if you have a square root name function within your same program? So that can give you otherwise a naming conflict. So if you want to import all the function, so you could say from math import star. That is also same. It will import all the functions from that, and if you run this, it will give you answer 2. If you run this will give you answer 2. So this is how there are different ways of importing. You can import the full module by just saying import that module name, or you can import one or all the functions. It's a good naming convention practice to use the fully qualified name. So there is a function called help, which works both for module and other function to get all the documentation around it. So for example, in this case, if I want to see what is square root is about, and I can use help function, and this will give me help on built-in square root function. Whatever function help is there, it will provide us. So this is also important function to know, which is called help. So continuing to understand built-in modules, we'll see some example for different modules. We already saw square root example for math module. Like that, we have another module called time. So we can import that, import time, and if I simply say print time.time, and it should give the time. It generally gives second and fraction of seconds. We can use this thing to see how long it takes, because at this particular instance that was the time in seconds. So you can see that it has the accuracy up to 7 decimal places for second. So it is very, very accurate time you can get with this function. Another one we have is date time. So if we say import date time, so it gives you complete date. So I can say print date time dot now. It will it gives the full date time here. What is the date and time? And you can try out different functions which are listed there to see how it works. So I can say today dot, let's say month. It will give you the month, which is Jan, or you can say day. It will give you the day. So these are the few things which you can try, which you can practice. There are some examples here for the formatting. Let's say we import date time. I'll show you 1 or 2 examples, and you can also try. So I take it from current date equal to date time dot date dot today. Now there is a formatting which is string format time or strf time, which you can define and try out different things. Like we can say current date dot string format time, and here you can use any of this format to play around how this formatting works. For example, I say D and Y, so it gives me in that format, and there are different formats we can try. Same for time function, you can try different formats for time. Next is sys package. So we have seen example for sys package where it was used for command line argument. Other example of this package could be to write and read to the console, same as if we would have done it on the file. So let's say import sys. If I just print sys.arg and print it, it will be blank because there is nothing to print. And if I say sys.out.write hello, so it will print hello on the terminal, and even on the command line it will print the same. So this is another module you should be familiar with. The next one which we want to cover is the OS module, operating system. So import OS, and we can do os.path, that is a sub module under that. So this can be used to check if the file exists. There is a good function to check if the file exists. So let's say os.path.isFile. I'm just gonna give a name abc.txt. So it will give you false because there is no file like that on this path. I just gave it a name. But if there is a file there, it will give you true. You can give a full qualified file path here to check if the file exists or not. So let's try with my other file on which I am working. So answer is true because this first.py is there. So it gives you answer as true that this file exists. Then there are another function like get size. So that gives you size of file. So here it is saying 61, maybe it's in the bytes, and you can use a remove function to remove that file. So these are the use of OS and OS path package. So another one which is a pretty useful module is random. So how do we use it? We say from random import star. That means we are importing all the function from random. So if I just say print random, so it will give you between 0 to 1.0, it will give you a integer. It will give you a number. So if I run it, it's simply giving me this. We can play around a little bit and see. If I say I want to play for I in range 10 and say print random, it should print 10 random numbers. So it is printing 10 random numbers between 0 and 10. So another function we have is randint. If we want to be specific and we want an integer random number, then we can tell and we can specify the range, like between 1 to 10, give me random integer. And this is inclusive. This is including 1 and 10. And if I run this program, it should give me 10 random integers between 1 to 10, inclusive of 1 and 10. So it is giving me all these numbers. So this random is about numbers, and we can do some randomization on the list also. There are two functions called shuffle and sample. So let's create a list. Let's say fruits is equal to apple, orange. This is our list, and I should have that from random import star. So what I can do, I can use shuffle function. Shuffle fruits will pass our thing. So this will shuffle it, and let's say print fruits. So this list is an apple, banana, orange. After shuffle, let's see if it changes. So it became orange, banana, apple, and this is all random. So next example we are going to take is sample. So when we say sample, instead of this, we need to say list, and we need to say how many sample we want. So if I say I want one sample out of it, and let's say print. So it will pick one random item out of this list. So in this case, it is bringing orange. So I can even use 2. Let's say I want to pick 2 random items from this list. So we can even say 2, and it is bringing banana and apple. So this is how we can use random module to randomize the numbers as well as to do shuffle and sample from a list. With this, we are done with your final module and tool skill set, and that completes all the needed skill set for this MTA 98381 exam. Congratulations. What is next? So next step is you should get familiar with the exam format. Try out coding examples. I'll also put some examples in the description. You can try those out. Book your exam and good luck. Hopefully this course was helpful for you to continue learning. Keep learning. Thanks a lot. Thank you.